Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Sally and today's video is about, you guessed it, coffee. Namely 3 pro-metabolic coffee ideas that are fun and delicious, but most importantly gonna prevent that nasty cortisol spike that throws off your entire day. So any of these recipes can be made hot or iced. In the video, I just made them the way that I prefer. The recipe I start with is what I've got right here. It's my raw egg yolk coffee and I make it hot. So that number 1, I can show you the process of making a hot drink. You can then apply it to the 2 later drinks. And number 1, or rather number 2, so you have the egg yolk coffee basis, which then you can actually add to either of the other recipes, repeating the same process as you'll see of combining a raw egg yolk with some sugar. So without further ado, let's get into it, but don't forget to let me know in the comments below your favorite way to have your coffee. The first coffee we're gonna make is one that you have most likely heard of if you are in any pro-metabolic circles at all, and that is the raw egg yolk coffee. But first we need to address the obvious, which is that of food safety. When it comes to consuming raw eggs, the main concern is salmonella, which actually is found on the shell of the egg. In and of themselves, the white and the yolk do not tend to contain or pose a risk of salmonella. However, when it comes to selecting eggs to use for this purpose, you need to choose pasture-raised, or it is ideal to choose pasture-raised eggs, ideally from a local source that have not been pre-washed, because number 1, it's during the upbringing, or rather the life of the chickens, where the eggs are getting covered in nasty stuff from close living quarters, that salmonella really becomes a risk. And number 2, in the washing process, if it's done incorrectly, it can increase the risks of exposure. So all that goes to say, I've got a lovely little egg here from my friend Emily's backyard chickens, and we're gonna get to work. We are starting out with 3 things. I've got my egg yolk separated, and in a bowl I've got some real maple syrup, and I've got just a little bit of vanilla extract. You can use any kind of sugar in this, but maple syrup is my preference. I'm gonna add anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons to your bowl with your egg yolk. And then the vanilla is totally optional, but I think it makes it extra yummy, and so I add just a couple drops to my mixture as well. We're going to whisk it up until it gets nice and creamy, ideally fluffy, but with the maple syrup, that's not always the most feasible. Whipping the egg yolk with some form of sugar helps to preserve the nutrients that can otherwise be denatured with heating. So I'm just gonna add this to my mug, and then we're gonna go ahead and pull our espresso. And yes, Samuel's in the background making lovely noises with a bottle of sriracha. Here I've got my egg yolk, sugar, vanilla mixture, and my espresso now. I've also added a scoop of collagen, which is optional, but that makes sure you're getting some protein in addition to the milk. So we've got our carbohydrates from the sugar, we've got our fat from the egg yolk, and now we've got some protein from the collagen. And we're gonna add a little bit more of all of that with the milk. Those 3 macronutrients with your coffee are gonna help make sure you don't see a cortisol spike and jitters or a crash later on in the day. It already looks so good. Last thing to do was just add my steamed milk, and here I've got my yolky coffee, raw egg yolk coffee. Clearly my latte art was a smashing success. I don't know if you can tell, it's just a big blob on the top. Funny thing is that I used to be a barista. Oh well. This next coffee recipe is probably my favorite of the ones I'm sharing, and it's my iced honey lavender latte. You can definitely do it hot as well, but I think it's super refreshing and summery to have it iced. It was inspired by this local coffee shop called Social. They have a fantastic version, so I had to figure out how to make it at home. It does require just a little bit of preparation ahead of time, but once you get your lavender syrup made, it'll last you a while. So in a saucepan right over here, I've got equal parts water and sugar just dissolving. And then I have my lavender. This is from the Spice Merchant, Cape Fear Spice Merchant, which is local to Wilmington. But if you're ever here, you should absolutely check it out. They have some really great teas and spices, all for super low prices, and it's really high quality stuff. So I'm gonna add about two tablespoons of my lavender to the pot. We're gonna let it simmer for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then I'm just gonna let it sit on the stove for at least an hour before draining the lavender out. It's the next morning. I've gone ahead and drained out my lavender syrup. Here it is. It's a lovely blush color. So there's about a cup total. We can see, yeah, about a cup total. That'll last for a good while. And then I have 2 shots of espresso here. I went ahead and mixed in my collagen. I do that before anything else because I find that it dissolves best. So this little kitchen scale is my best friend. All we're gonna do now is add about 15 grams of honey, and then we're gonna add 15 grams of that lavender syrup. Now we're just gonna pour our espresso mixture over about a cup of milk with ice. And that's it, an iced honey lavender latte. Our last coffee recipe is what I like to call a rosy mocha. We got a little bit of a special ingredient here, just some rose water. I know you can order this online. You can probably find it in specialty spice shops as well. But we're going to use this and some cacao powder and make a delicious floral drink. For this recipe, I've got my espresso, and then I've gone ahead and of course added my collagen for a little bit of protein. Then what we're gonna do is sweeten it with just a little bit of honey. I like to do about 30 grams, but you can certainly do a little bit less, a little bit more, just depending on your preferences. Now that my honey's dissolved, we're just gonna add our only 2 other ingredients. I've got 1 teaspoon of cacao powder. This is awesome because it's a little kick of magnesium as well. And then when we combine that with milk, you're getting a nice balance of magnesium and calcium. And I've got my rose water. Bear in mind, this stuff is pretty strong. Got a half teaspoon here. I would not do more than a half teaspoon, at least not initially. I've got a cup of milk over ice, and we will just pour, as we did the last time, our espresso mixture on top. Cheers. Okay, all right, well, I'm gonna sign off. Y'all know the drill. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to hit subscribe. Really helps your girl out, but until next time, bye y'all.